don't even know why I started talking about that. It's bananas hard to sort of maintain it. It's not great. F those guys. They're a bunch of liars. It feels like my special purpose, to quote Steve Martin. I'm willing to take that journey. Who they are and what they believe, and of course the way that they act. This is the way that I want to be. I have tendencies to be incredibly selfish. Small brain that's sort of just taking over. As you continue on in your world, believing all your nonsense, how you actually treat people. Whether or not you believe it is irrelevant. I find to be just absolutely ridiculous and offensive. Deal with band members that refuse to do their homework. If you don't do the work, like it shows, this has to be this way. How long does it take you to just learn something basic? I'll talk about more as we go.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Hard Rock Lunchbox. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to the top 20. It is a absolutely beautiful, September 5th, 2024. We've had a really just amazing stretch of good weather here in the Northeast. I don't know if that bodes well for what's coming in the fall and winter, but I personally will take it. Just been enjoying being outside whenever I can. I had our second Hurricanes practice last night. It was actually chilly. The girls were in hoodies and stuff. For a little while. They scrimmaged for about an hour. So by the end of it, they were not. Even I was sweating. I had sweat stains all over my shirt. Those girls definitely pushed me past my physical limits. They're just much better athletes than I am, and will be in the remaining years of my lifetime. So it is good. I did a lot of physical activity yesterday. I was outside a lot. I clocked at least 5 miles just walking because I had 2 errands I had to run. So I did that. Well, actually 3, kind of, depending on how you look at it. And then proceeded to train the girls at soccer practice for an hour. So I assume that I'm upwards around 500,000 steps for yesterday, which is great. I didn't lose any weight, in case you were wondering. Thank you for not asking. I will say I got reprimanded by my guitar player the other day because he was mad at me for losing weight without sending out a band memo because he had gained weight. And I thought that was kind of funny, actually, because that's not how that works. Also, I'm surprising nobody. I should be surprising nobody. I've been steadily losing weight since roughly October last year when I really started. Well, even August, I had started walking last year. So it's my walk-iversary, really. We just sort of passed it. But September and October, I really kind of got into making it a priority. September, I probably was ramping up to where I was going to end up being. I do remember the trails that I walked to in the fall, and sometimes I've done it recently too. I haven't been there since I hurt my calf because there's really there's a good reason, but I'll get to that in a second. But the trails that I used to walk to were too far when I first started walking, and I just kind of find it amusing at this point. And it makes sense, but it's kind of amusing at this point where it's I'll walk to the trails and it's not even enough. If I walk to the trails and walk back, it's not enough of a walk. I really do try and get between 50 minutes to an hour, which is usually about 3 miles whenever I'm out walking. It seems to be the right amount of time for me. But once I get... The reason I can't go to the trails, there's 2 reasons, right? So the main trails I walk to over by Janes Hill in the West Hills Preserve, I could walk if I wanted to really bundle up and do some tick prevention because we have a big tick problem, and we also have a kind of a mosquito problem on Long Island and in the weeds here. And I think it's because since they haven't really, they've detected West Nile once or twice, but until they really start seeing some sort of outbreak, they just don't spray, which is, from a health perspective, is a good thing, right? The sprays really aren't so great for you, as you can probably imagine. But they do, we have a pretty significant mosquito problem, certainly even just where I live, which is just annoying. It basically ruins most of the summer trying to be outside. So we have that, but also the ticks are really bad. Like we have Lyme disease, infected ticks here constantly because the Northeast is just home to that. And I just don't really want to bother. And I don't like bundling up. I don't like being in like long pants when I'm walking, especially in the summer. As it gets cooler and I can wear like sweats, I can bundle in my socks and it's fine. But once you get to like a certain point, the ticks really aren't much of an issue anyway, so I'll be over there. But what's really the biggest problem right now is since I pulled my calf muscle, which is getting much better. I felt it last night as I was chasing down soccer balls for the girls. I felt it like it's still there, and I really do not want to pull it or tear anything because all it's going to do is set me back. Like I really lost several days of walking, which is not only just a physical kind of workout sort of thing for me, it's more like a mental just break in space. So it's important for me to have that time, and I really couldn't do that for a few days after I pulled my calf last time, so I just don't want to do it again. So I'm still at the point where I really can't be really jogging. And the reason that's important is when I go to the far trails, it's a horse trail, so it's a little bit wider. And it's sand based, so I don't really have to worry about ticks over there as long as I just stay away from the ground foliage. But the bugs are absolutely incredible, and they fly into your eyes, they fly up your nose, they try and fly in your mouth. Like it's just crazy. So the only way you can really go up there without constantly being pestered is if you're jogging at kind of like a good clip, like over 4 miles an hour and stuff like that. Like the bugs, I mean, I feel like they could catch you if they wanted to, but I feel like it's just not worth it to them. So they don't really bother you, or you run past them so fast they can't zero in on your nostril. Whatever it is, as long as I can't do that, I'm not going there because it's just so disgusting to just have bugs like all over you, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I don't even know why I started talking about that. And probably doesn't much matter. Oh, yeah, I was talking about Kaz and stuff. Yeah, it was funny. So, like, he was mad at me for losing weight. And what's funny is, like, I'm not back to the weight that I should be at. Like, I'm back to pre-COVID weight. Like, I'm beyond that. But the weight that I really, was kind of targeting was, in my opinion, still a heavy weight, but at least I looked and felt a lot better. It was, the last time I was at that target weight was kind of a lot of the touring we were doing just after the Reality Crush came out. So a lot of 2013, like 2013, 2014, the touring before Reality Crush came out, because that came out in 2015. So it was like when I was reorganizing the band with the new guys, like we were doing a lot of shows, and just naturally because of that and the fact that I just don't eat before shows, and of course doing shows is like a good way to burn 10,000 calories, and I was just generally a little happier and more physically fit back then, but like I just carried things a little bit better, and that's kind of the target weight mentally that I've been wanting to get back to, and I'm still not there. I think what's alarming or not alarming, but I think what people are seeing is that in my face tends to be a little bit thinner than it was. But the whole reason I even bring that up is because I know what my number is currently, and I'm still not happy with it, so I'm still trying to lose a little bit more. And I do have like a far target I'd like to get to that I just may or may not even be possible, to be perfectly honest, especially heading into winter where most human beings tend to add a little bit of weight too. Plus I'm on new medications, unfortunately, that are prone to add weight, which just sucks. I mean, it's like almost literally shooting yourself in the foot, because I'd probably end up gaining that kind of weight. So I don't know how I'm going to combat that. It doesn't look like situationally I'm going to be able to get off them right away. So that sort of sucks. But that's, I do still want to keep losing the weight. But like I said, like I feel like I am thinner in the face. That's what people keep telling me. And that is what it looks like. I don't see it. I see myself every day. I feel like I'm just as bloated and chubby-cheeked as I always was. So I don't know what they're seeing exactly. I do know that I think the compliment that is like, hey, wow, you've lost a lot of weight, really just highlights just how heavy I was. And it's, I do get to look back at some of these videos and stuff, and what I always notice is just how, like, how far my guitar would stick out on my belly. And it's like, it's just so under attractive. Like I've really got to, I feel like I've made some peace with it, because, it is really what it is. It happened. Like, I can't unhappen it. You know what I mean? So, like, it just is what it is. So, like, I'll accept it or I won't, but it did happen, and that's kind of what it was. And I've struggled with weight my entire life, with the exception of my last couple years of high school and my first couple years of college. Really was the only time where my male young adult metabolism that most people get was just totally killing it. But after that, like, as soon as I had a sedentary job, it was kind of over. But as long as I was doing something physical for work, then I was just fine, because I have no problem doing the work. I never had a problem doing the work. I like doing physical work. I was just saying a couple weeks ago, like, how much I do sort of enjoy that kind of thing, because it just feels like you accomplish stuff. So I like doing that. But, I don't. I work in IT now. When I'm not performing or rehearsing or playing soccer, I'm basically sitting. Sometimes I stand. I do have trouble standing at work, though, because I have concentration issues. Thank you, antidepressants from 2012 or 15 or whenever I was on them. The gift that keeps on giving, the ADHD I picked up from that. So I have concentration issues, so I end up just walking around instead of actually working at my desk. So that's not very practical when I'm trying to get stuff done. It is fine when I'm trying to kill time, so that's great. But it is just, it's funny because the whole belly thing, like with the belly being a little bit smaller now, like my guitar does sit differently. And I actually had to struggle with kind of relearning how to, fret different chords and stuff like that, which is not something you consider when you're about to embark on weight loss. But anyway, so it's good. It's good for me personally to have lost some of the weight that I wanted to lose, because I do feel a little bit better. I am disappointed at the method at which I had to do it. Like, as much as I like walking and, light exercise and stuff like that, the fact that, like, my calorie restrictions in order to do that is anywhere from 700 to 1,200 calories a day is just, it's bananas hard to sort of maintain. And it's also not likely that I'll be able to maintain that for the rest of my life. So, and already, like, I definitely have days where I go over that. The upside is that there tends to be a limit of what I can eat. Like, I can't just keep pushing food in. I will get actually kind of sick from it, which is good. Like, I'm glad to have that, and I'll retrain my body and my internal mechanisms to sort of figure that out. But it does mean, like, I really just don't have a lot of things that I enjoy anymore. And there's only so many times I can have and enjoy chicken, basic chicken cutlets with, steamed broccoli. I mean, it's not great. You know what I mean? It's not a slice of Brooklyn pizza and stuff like that. So, but I'd rather be skinny than that for right now. So I have to find a place for all that, and, my life and stuff like it. And as everybody knows, and everybody says for years, like, it's really all about moderation. And I kind of have to learn that. At my advanced age, I have to relearn what moderation looks and feels and tastes like. And that sucks and can suck. But again, as long as I'm motivated on the goal, hopefully I can kind of keep continuing. But that was funny that the kind of guitar just sort of sits differently on me. That was not something I was expecting at all. So we've got some basic light housekeeping here. There's a new top 20 out, Sharing in Hindsight, where I talk about the Arlington Cemetery incident with Donald Trump and the Trump campaign that effectively just lied because they did something wrong. They went out and lied, and it actually caused the Army, the United States Army, to actually, like, take the unprecedented action and release a statement correcting the national discourse. It just goes to show just how absolutely disgusting the Trump campaign can be at times, because they just don't care, and they lie all the time. And if you still don't think they lie, well, I'll take the Secretary of the Army's word over what happened over the Trump's campaign manager any day, every day. So F those guys. They're a bunch of liars. And if you still don't think so, like, then you're either just a moron or, just not, I guess you're just not smart enough to put it together. So we don't need you. We don't need you. We have enough dumb people in this country. We do not need more. We have plenty. We are full. So thank you, but no thank you. Also, it talks about the beeping tire sensor, which I have not gotten fixed. I almost scheduled an appointment today for next week, but I just don't know my weekly schedule anymore, so I'm going to wait. Not that anybody cares, because nobody's in the van. And we're talking about unplugging for mental health, which reminds me, I was actually going to read this whole thing, or not this whole thing, but just bits and pieces of it. I was going to talk about what is now being classified as major depressive disorder, because I think it's important to talk about those kinds of things in terms of how they affect people, how they kind of manifest themselves in people, especially. So major depressive disorder is what they used to call clinical depression, and just talks about definitions and symptoms. And as you get more and more versed in that kind of stuff, like I've already been diagnosed with clinical depression. It's something I've battled for years. So once you're kind of in that headspace, you really do start seeing it in people around you all the time. And it's super simple to sort of walk away with that diagnosis. It really is like a 2-week stint of like these low sort of depressive things, and like boom, there you go. You have a diagnosis. Now I'm less concerned about people that have it off and on for a couple of weeks, because at least there's light in there. I'm way more concerned about people like myself that fall into that and can be there for months, sometimes as long as years, because that is what gets really detrimental. I mean, there's always the risk of like it getting worse, and they talk about like your lifespan is severely decreased when you do struggle with major depressive disorder. A lot of that is because of the incredibly high suicide rate over the average, and that does tend to skew that. I am not in any way in that sort of boat, so I'm fine there. But because of the depressive nature of depression, like it really keeps you from being alive and feeling alive and acting alive and doing all those other things that kind of nourish the soul. The more concerning part for me is always the loss of pleasure in doing things that you normally take pleasure in. I've been talking about that off and on for months on this show. My sort of loss of desire and drive to even perform and write and, play music and stuff like it. It's literally the thing that I believe to have been put on this earth for and to do. Like, it really feels like my special purpose, to quote Steve Martin in The Jerk. And I can't even take any semblance of joy out of it anymore, which sucks, right? Like, that is literally one of the keynote kind of symptoms of major depressive disorder, which just blows. And I know a lot of people that like kind of dance with that often, but I am happy that they are able to sort of find pleasure in things like that beauty in everyday spaces, which if you needed another hint as to when I was dealing with my first clinical diagnosis of major depressive disorder was when I was writing Do No Harm, and the working title, as I said a couple weeks ago, was Beauty in Everyday Spaces, and that really was a sort of nod to like, if you can just do that and you can find those things and find some pleasures in the everyday existence, then at least there's a way out. It's really when you get to that flat point, you just don't see those things anymore, where it becomes a little bit more serious. So, but we can talk about that at another time. I don't feel like talking about it anymore today because it's just feels like stuff I get to deal with every single day, and I just don't feel like dealing with it anymore today, so I'm not gonna. I will say, one of the things, though, that does tend to happen when I am in those spaces, and again, I'm not talking about depression specifically, one of the things that happens to me in those spaces is because I don't find the pleasure in the stuff that I normally do, I end up in a great level of dissatisfaction with songs I've written. And that doesn't really do anything for songs that I've already written and recorded. I mean, sometimes, anybody that's seen me live knows that I will add like variances here and there to songs, certainly vocal melodies. They evolve over time. Absolutely change stuff up for acoustic and unplugged shows because I feel like there's some interesting stuff to explore when you sort of change the format with which you do songs. But for the most part, I'm not really changing any of that. But the songs that are kind of like still on the drawing board or older songs that just really haven't hit their mark yet, they become like a real high focus for me in those spaces. I've done several rewrites with Scars over the years. One of the ones we're recording right now is a song called End Us All. I have rewritten that so many times, I don't even remember the initial. Or I didn't remember the initial. I actually dug up the demo because I wanted to send it to Caggiano before we started tracking vocals for that, because I still wasn't sold on and I'm still not sold on the vocal line. We've done the main vocal line, we've done the dual vocal, it's not even a harmony, it's a secondary vocal in the song. All we really have left to do are the backing vocals. I'm still not 100% sold on it, so it kind of shows you where we're at. But the dissatisfaction I have with those other songs that are just on the chopping block, or on the drawing board, not even the chopping block, like it just becomes so readily apparent. Like we have a song called As You Run, which was actually something I was pushing for this batch of songs, and we just didn't select it. I don't even remember the reasons why. I know we picked It's Alright because it's one of the original 4, I guess, that we were working on, and it's like, it's a good song and everybody likes it, and I think it's going to come out really good. Caggiano has a real knack for kind of fine-tuning those things that I'm not completely sold on, and I will defer to his judgment on songs like that, because he'll hear something that I don't, and that interests me, and I'm willing to take that journey. But it was also in the same batch as Scars, and the only reason we didn't go with Scars this time is because we were in the middle of a rewrite for it. So that'll probably be in the next batch, simply because of its age. Even if it's a good song anyway, but like I think because of its age, like we got to get it out, otherwise it's just going to sit there and kind of languish, and I don't want to do that. But so the song As You Run was definitely one that I was pushing for, mainly because I just really, really liked the chorus. But for whatever reason, over the past couple of months, I've just become so disillusioned with the verses that I ended up rewriting it finally again. I have a new vocal melody for it. I've changed some of the words. The meaning of the song has sort of just changed from what it was. I mean, the song was always kind of like a hard look at, kind of like a hard look at the way people speak, about who they are and what they believe, and of course the way that they act, which I, just as a student of psychology, have just always found to be incredibly interesting and fascinating. And it's not something that any of us are immune to. Like I've definitely done it where I've said that this is the way that I want to be, and I still can revert back to old, really bad habits. Like I have tendencies to be incredibly selfish and self-centered that I spent, I feel like, most of my adult life trying to just eradicate in my ability. But when you're in lower spaces sometimes, or in quiet, really thinking spaces, and it's really just your small brain that's sort of just taking over, it's super easy to fall back into those patterns that you've done from childhood. And a lot of people will talk about certain, PTS that from childhood, that you just sort of revert back to these traumas, especially like me. If you haven't done the work to sort of excise them, it's super easy to fall back into those patterns. So that's what the song was kind of always about anyway. And it was just the whole As You Run. It was like, as you continue on in your world, believing all your nonsense that you're talking about, it's, maybe just once you just check yourself. So that's kind of what it's always been, but I've really refined it over the past couple months to just sort of be more about, you think you treat people one way, and you can just talk about it like how you think you treat people and how you treat people, but then there's the difference between how you actually treat people, and just how horrendously you can treat people sometimes. Whether or not you believe it is irrelevant, because it's really about the other person. You may not like it, but the effect that you're having on other people it can be catastrophic to them, but also it's the discrepancy, what you think you're doing and how that manifests itself into what you actually do. And now that's really what the song's about. One of the lines is I don't even remember. I can't do it unless I sing the whole song. Doesn't matter. I am tasking the band with playing that at our next show, which is October 4th at Beery's. I'm also tasking the band with to play this brand new song we have called The One that we've been working on over a month now, which I find to be just absolutely ridiculous and offensive, because all it really says to me is the band is not doing their homework, which I don't think that's an opinion at this point. I think it's a demonstrable fact. I think if I hand a song out and I'm like, hey, learn it, and they don't, that means they're not doing the work. And I talk to people in bands all the time that deal with band members that refuse to do their homework despite how grandiose they think that they are doing in the band. But the reality is, if you don't do the work, like, it shows. Like, it's not something that I wouldn't notice, right? Like, here's a song. Now, to be fair, I mean, people that know me and have heard, like, demos of what I do when I release it, like, most of the time, like 90 to 95% of the time, I release a complete song. Drums, bass, guitars. Sometimes I put solos on, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I could just tell Kaz, hey, put a solo on here. If I'm going to play a solo, I'll just record it. And of course, I do vocals. A lot of times I have backing vocal ideas. Now, that's not to say that these songs don't evolve, because of course they do. And I always encourage the band to bring in their parts, bring in their ideas to their parts, because 90% of the time they're going to make a song better. Very, very few times am I like, this has to be this way. But usually there's a reason for it. Sometimes, like on bass, like they'll be like, well, the bass goes down while the guitar goes up, and I like that particular dichotomy. So I'll say to Tony, like, you have to do this. Like I say to Noodle, like, the chorus has to be this way. Like, you have to double here, and you have to, single or halftime here, because the guitars and the vocals are doing this. There's a lot to songwriting that at this point I can say to the band, and I don't necessarily have to explain it anymore. But as the songwriter, I say, this is important to the song, and as a songwriter, I get to call out when it trumps whatever you want to do. I'll still listen to whatever idea, because sometimes they're just really great ideas. Sometimes the ideas are so good, it changes the way the song works. Like, there's, in this song, the new one, like, I had to stop before we went into the last chorus, but at this point, Noodle's just doing this really cool around the drum fill, and I'm like, I think I like that better. It really just brings us right into this last chorus, so I think that that's going to end up happening and sticking around for a little while. But the reality is, like, I brought this song to the band, I think, like, right after our last show, like, at Nostalgia, or even before that, because I had considered trying to get it ready for Nostalgia, which was just not happening. So think about how long ago that was, and then think about where we're at, and it's still not done. And like I said, like, I'll hand out this demo. Like, the band should sound like the demo, in my opinion, within 2 weeks. Like, I feel like that's long enough, and I feel like any cover band musicians out there will kind of just agree with me on that, because it really is about, like, how long does it take you to just learn something basic? Not write something, just learn something. And I feel like, we're past that point. So I'm going to task the band with making sure that we're playing this song by October, because if I don't give them a deadline, they just won't do it. And that's unfortunate. But anyway, I feel like I've talked enough. I've talked about Rebel 9 songwriting. I've talked about depression. I've talked about new episode and all that other stuff, and I'll talk about more as we go, because it's time for us to head into the local music rock block, like we start every Hard Rock Lunchbox. So we'll get started. I'm gonna open with Tallest Trees in the Universe. I do miss that band terribly. They only put out one EP. They were a very short-lived band around here. Played with them a couple times. Super nice guys, really good band, and I just highlighting once again how sometimes even the best bands can't make it work. So I think the ones that are in bands that are currently working should sort of take note, because it's not as easy as it seems, and it's not as easy as it would seem to kind of keep these great projects together. It does take work, and maybe you should take it less for granted as you go. I'm just offering up a suggestion on this beautiful September morning.